great surgeon once wrote, "All surgeons carry inside themselves an inner cemetery, a place full of bitterness and regret." A day scarcely passes without me remembering patients I feel have failed. But they're all there. They're standing around me.
Hello, morning.
My name is Henry Marsh. I spent 40 years as a brain surgeon, operating on thousands of patients.
One of the UK's top brain surgeons, Henry Marsh.
Henry's definitely prolonged my life, hasn't he?
And we're thankful that Henry's done what he's done.
This neurosurgeon operates on the most complex part of what makes us human.
He's special because he cares.
You play a spectacular, stellar role in your patients' lives if things go well. And I loved it. And it was so profoundly meaningful. It was the brain, life itself. Normal brain has the consistency of very smooth cream cheese. I removed life-threatening tumours when sometimes other doctors said there was no hope. You have a better chance of success if you are awake throughout the operation. Well, we will start removing the tumour. The tumour is gone, hurrah! Thank you. Recently, in retirement, something happened to me that changed my life. It wasn't until I became a patient myself with cancer that I really understood just how miserable it is being a patient. Humiliating, demeaning, frightening. Now I'm returning to my past, where every day came with difficult life and death decisions.
The first doctor we saw, they said, it's inoperable and it's incurable, and I can't tell you if you've got months or years.
Go away and die.
Yes.
It's so very painful to confront our own mistakes, but we won't make progress if we don't. What are the lessons I've learnt to share with the doctors of the future? We are not gods. The trouble is our patients want us to have godlike power. What impact did my career have on those closest to me? We abused each other so intensely for 2 years.
It was a terrible time.
What can I learn from the families of the patients who died in my care?
When you lose a child, I think you have to blame somebody. I blamed you for so long, and the hate has lived with me for 29 years.
Say something, Henry, so I can check I can hear you all right.
When in disgrace with fortune in men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate. I've lived alone in my house in Wimbledon for 20 years. In my spare time, I was obsessed by home improvements and renovated the house from top to bottom. This is the attic of my house. It's a loft conversion I did myself 20 years ago. In retrospect, I don't quite know how I managed. I couldn't do it now. Anyway, it's a very nice room. I retired as a brain surgeon 10 years ago, but I can't cope if I'm not busy. I've started a new project, delving into my past. Scattered around me is the diary I've kept really all my life since the age of 12. And I write it basically every day, and writing a diary every day for, almost 40 years, more than 40 years. I mean, it's a huge amount. Most of it's rubbish. It's about how miserable I am and about the weather. But every so often I find a little sort of seam of gold in it, which I think probably is worth keeping. I've never looked at these before, you know. I was a very shy, awkward teenager. I was very, very inexperienced and desperately frustrated. All my friends were bonking away and I wasn't. A As a young man, I never even thought I wanted to be a doctor. I dropped out of university and got a job as a hospital porter before going to medical school. For doctors talking of the pornographic videotapes they played on the Mess TV and the Falkland Islands War, of which latter they talked with armchair wisdom, potted from reading the day's papers. So that's quite funny. 1985, that's when I was a trainee neurosurgeon. Operating 8:30 to 5. I had to hypotense a patient and burst the aneurysm in order to get a right-angled clip. I do little diagrams, that's an aneurysm. In my opinion, neurosurgery is much more about decision-making than simply operating. That's the difficult part. Because everything we are, our feelings, our personality, our thoughts, our fears, our hopes, are all part of our brain. So that when I operate on a brain, it's as though I'm holding a human soul in my hands. I loved my work. The fact it was microscopic and fiddly. I like using my hands doing fine work, but extremely dangerous. A bit like bomb disposal work, although bomb disposal work for cowards, I suppose you could call it. And I just completely fell in love with it. It made me feel I was doing something profoundly meaningful. And that's a huge privilege. But it comes at a cost, that's the trouble. An unhappy day at work. The 16-year-old girl with the craniopharyngioma suffered a major stroke this morning after the operation. And now, after all, she'll be left wrecked with brain damage. Wondered what suffering lies ahead for her and how much longer she has to live. This is so painful. I must have operated on thousands of people, and that's thousands of life stories. I'm not unusual, I think, as a senior retired doctor. All I remember are the disasters and problems. I simply don't remember the successes at all. I look at my diary I kept over the years, and I look back of this sort of overwhelming sense of failure. But looking back on my career, all I can see is the inner cemetery. And that's a very, very painful truth. It's going to take me months to work through all this. And I don't know if I'll live long enough to relive my life. Recently, my perspective has shifted somewhat. I've become a patient myself. I was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer, which may well prove incurable. It all seemed pretty gloomy and serious, and I was very upset and very frightened. I thought that I was going to die quite soon, and I had radiotherapy. And I was also put on hormone therapy, which basically is chemical castration, for 2 years. Now, I've been off all treatment now for over a year, but basically you have a blood test every 6 months to see if the cancer's coming back. And if it's coming back, the disease will kill me, but you sort of tend to live in sort of 6 month intervals, which is a bit trying. It's concerning, it makes one anxious, but at the same time I have to be realistic. You know, I'm almost 74. I'm horrified by the idea of dementia and decrepitude. I watched my father, who was a very brilliant man, become profoundly demented, and although emotionally I feel very worried about the possibility of the cancer coming back, rationally I say, well, it's my vaccination against dementia, you know. So it's complicated. Having been dealing with poor patients with cancer throughout my professional life, I suppose I would have thought maybe I'd have been a bit sort of more phlegmatic and or sanguine, and they're not phlegmatic about it all. But I wasn't. I was very, very frightened and very upset, and I still am to a certain extent. For much of my career, I worked closely with one of the country's top neurosurgical anaesthetists.
Henry and his anaesthetist, Judith Dinsmore, have worked together for 7 years.
Hey, look, there you are, the young Judith.
Look at that youth.
Together, we pioneered a controversial new technique called awake craniotomy. We removed brain tumours from patients' heads while they were still conscious. Judith and I were the first team in Britain to perform these operations. The way we did the awakes then is we had the patient anaesthetized to sleep while I sawed open the skull. Once I'd done that and exposed the brain, Judith would then wake the patient up and start talking to the patient.
Adrian? Adrian? Hello.
Adrian's tumour was immediately adjacent to the speech area on the left side of the head. And the tumour looks like the brain, basically. And the only way you have of knowing whether you're operating on tumour or operating on speech part of the brain is by having the patient awake and talking.
So helicopter is for flying.
Great.
There's a broom for sweeping up.
Fantastic.
I think it's all tumour, isn't it?
The words coming easily? They
Words
seem
are fine.
to be.
Words
yeah.
are still fine.
Good.
I was able to detect if there were changes in either his fluency or his word-finding ability. Because the whole aim was to get out as much tumour as possible without causing any neurological damage, lasting neurological damage.
I can hear it.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty sordid, isn't it? You know, squelching sounds. I've already removed most of it, in fact.
To get as much out as he can.
Yeah, did you hear that, Henry?
Yes, Adrian, I'm working on it.
Yeah, he's doing his best. What about this?
Something you put the camera on
Yeah.
to... I can't remember what it's called. Begins with an S.
Tripod. Tripod.
Tripod.
Yeah, yeah. A little bit more muddled, Henry.
Yeah, okay.
I would say, you know, his speech is slowing down. Then we would have to make the decision, do you stop?
Right, let's call it a day.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
With these tumours, the more you remove, the longer people live. These tumours were considered inoperable in the past.
Hello.
All right.
How are you doing? All right?
I feel fine.
Good. Well done.
Absolutely fine.
I've got most of it out,
Right.
but I'm now very deep down, so I don't
Okay.
want to dig around too much. But certainly most of it's out, I can tell you that much.
And with Adrian's tumour, the fact he lived for years afterwards, it was because I'd removed most of it.
And you're obviously coping incredibly well.
Yeah.
You know, back then, when awake craniotomies weren't quite such standard practice.
They were not standard at all.
Now it is standard. I mean, it is taught in exams as a sort of gold standard for this type of tumour.
Though I did occasionally remove too much tumour, I did damage a few patients. I remember them very well. A day does not pass when suddenly I remember a patient, often from 30 or 40 years ago. Patients I failed.
It's funny because when I knew that I was going to come here and we were going to talk about this, I was remembering good results.
Oh, that's...
Yes. I could, especially looking back to the awake.
Yes.
There were good outcomes, groundbreaking work. I mean, we have all got cases that haunt us. But I think as an anaesthetist, you're somewhat more removed from those bad results.
At least anaesthetists don't have to go and see the patient every day for the next few weeks and look upon somebody whose life you've irrevocably ruined and feel responsible for it. And that's probably the most difficult part of being a surgeon. When I took risks, I did it because I believed the risks of not operating were greater. Many of the cases that have stayed with me the longest are the ones where if we didn't operate, the patient would most certainly have died. It's the old conundrum. If you do a dangerous operation, are you being reckless or are you being brave? And if you say go away and die, are you being wise or are you being a coward? You know, and there are no easy answers. But I still made some very, very critical mistakes. I can think of one operation where I should have abandoned the operation because I wasn't sure where I was. And I didn't, and I left the poor child horribly damaged. It still haunts me, as with many of these things. And then there was Tanya, a 9-year-old girl from Ukraine. I started visiting Ukraine on a voluntary basis in 1992, after the fall of the Soviet Union. I went there and I knew things would look pretty rough, but I was absolutely staggered at just how bad the conditions were. And so it started as a sort of working relationship. I'd go out to Ukraine once or twice a year. We were doing operations that nobody else was doing in Ukraine.
I think the scalp's viable, Richard.
In Ukraine, the tumours were that much bigger because they'd often been left undiagnosed for years. I thought I could help many of these patients. Tanya came with her mother. She had an enormous, benign, non-cancerous tumour, which had been deemed inoperable. She had half her face paralysed because of the tumour and a pronounced limp. And I felt, well, maybe I can get it out if I bring her to London. There was one colleague who was there with me throughout Tanya's 8-month treatment in London. Remember me?
Oh, yes, I remember you. How could I forget it?
Gail was my secretary throughout my time as a consultant, which was about 30 years. So she got to know quite a lot of my patients, and she was really devoted to them. We performed 2 operations on Tanya in an attempt to remove her tumour. It was one of the largest tumours I've ever seen. And that was after the first operation.
We would do whatever we could for her. It was such a shame, really. So it was very difficult. The nurses must have found it very difficult.
The second operation proved horribly difficult because the tumour was tangled up with the brain's blood vessels. Tanya had a stroke shortly afterwards. She survived, but she was stuck in hospital for 6 months. I mean, 6 months in intensive care, more or less, was a disaster. I look at this with complete horror. I really found it very distressing. Yeah, no, I found it very painful. Eventually she got home to Ukraine, but she died a year later. You know, I bit off more than I could chew with Tanya. You know, the wound is there. I stayed in touch with Tanya's mother, Katya, for many years, and despite my failure, she still thanked me for the fact I'd tried.
За ваше здоров'я. Зразу буду вже плакати.
Too upset. Understood. You witness terrible suffering. Blaisdell made some terrible mistakes.
But you're human.
Yeah, I'm human. Yeah, but as patients, we don't like to think our doctors are human. You know, you want them. It's intolerable to think your doctor might make mistakes. The odd thing is that now in retirement, all I see is the cemetery. It's a challenge, but a pretty grim one.
Well, I feel honoured, actually, to have worked with you. And I think if I were a patient, I would want somebody who actually had empathy with me and not someone who was just, well, you know, you've got a brain tumour, it's malignant, you're going to die in 3 months' time, thank you very much and goodbye. But you're not like that. Some surgeons are just cold-hearted, that's it. They go into theatre, they do what they can, come out and don't really think about it. But he thinks about it. Before, during and after. Yeah.
That's nice to hear.
That's part of the reason I stayed doing the job I did for such a long while. I really enjoyed it.
27 years.
Yeah,
that's quite
that's
a long
right.
time.
With you, yeah.
Did I ever lose my temper?
Oh, yes.
No. But did I get the impression when I was working with you that I was often very unhappy or just stressed?
I don't think perhaps your home life was as...
No, it wasn't. You were very supportive when my first marriage was falling apart, yeah.
You did need a lot of support to keep...
Yeah.
To keep you online.
No, it was an awful time. And I said, I owe you an awful lot, I really do. I can't really imagine doing neurosurgery without you, really. Gail, it's lovely to see you, I think. We were a very good team. So she was invaluable. And when I needed consoling, she would console me. So she was a sort of psychotherapist as well. I was extraordinarily lucky.
Au revoir. Bye. Bye. True eccentric.
Yes. What an eccentric.
Nice meeting him though. I haven't seen him for ages.
Saying I feel irritable and alienated from my family. Oh dear, why did I feel that? Probably because I was just spending the whole time at work. I was working absurdly long hours. I was either on call all the time, 7 days a week, 7 nights a week, 48 weeks a year, or every other night, every other weekend. So I basically had no life outside medicine at all. If you went into neurosurgery 40 years ago, those were the hours you worked, and your family had to lump it. What I regret is my mania for home improvements. As soon as I got home, I'd start doing do-it-yourself and building work, and in retrospect, that was wrong. I should have spent more time, particularly with my children. But I put myself first because I was so obsessed and stressed all the time about my work. Looking back at my diaries, I can see that my total commitment to neurosurgery gave rise to one of the most traumatic episodes in my personal life. Goodness, it's very intense stuff. No, that was 7 years before my marriage ended, and I wrote there realizing that the marriage was failing. It was very troubled during the years at the end of the marriage, and that went on for about 4 or 5 years, and that was really pretty horrible for both our children and my first wife and me. We were very happy together for many years, although it eventually fell apart because of my sense of drama and self-importance. Come on in. Do you want some tea or anything?
That would be lovely, yes. Please.
Hilary and I were together for 27 years. We've never really talked about the impact that my career had on our marriage.
Oh, here it is. It's Yorkshire. Tea, regular tea, please. Regular tea with, I hope you've got the milk.
There is some milk, and I did smell it, and it's all right. I think it's all right. It's past its best by date, but smelled all right to me. Are you happy with that? I think it's okay. No? It's gone off.
A little bit, okay.
2 or 3 years we were at war, weren't we?
Yes.
And my bad times, when I was often terribly upset about work, did I bring it home visibly or not?
Well, I think you did bring your work home,
Yeah.
but
I didn't talk about it, I don't think, did I? Or
yes, you talked
I did,
about
all
it
right.
all the time, yes.
And did you ever feel differently about it as the years went by and I became more and more sort of tormented and self-important and driven?
No, I never felt differently about neurosurgery and your being a doctor. But at the same time, there was a sense in which I felt I was bringing up the children
On your own.
alone a lot of the time.
You were.
And I think in the whole process of neurosurgery being the main theme in the family home, is I myself got a bit lost. So that although that was what you were doing and this was what I was doing, it didn't mean that one was actually more important than the other.
Yeah.
But that got lost a bit, didn't it?
It did.
So,
it did. I ended up thinking what I was doing was much more important, which now I fully understand was rubbish.
And then I think when you were at home, not really being completely there, I suppose, that I think became a problem. Yeah. Yeah. You've gone quiet. So some of it was good and some of it wasn't so good.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I agree. But I do regret it for the children. It did not help them one jot. When Hilary and I first started our family, I hadn't yet decided which area of medicine to specialise in. But that changed when our first child, William, was diagnosed with a brain tumour at just 3 months old.
There's
before surgery, undiagnosed.
Up to that point in my life, I had felt relatively invulnerable, and this completely changed that. And not knowing what was going on, and also losing someone to me who is so precious.
I couldn't cope with it at all. He was admitted to Great Ormond Street for a brain scan. He then was terribly ill. Everything was a complete nightmare. Absolute horror beyond horror. Well, I'd have thought it was a few weeks after surgery.
Yes, he's not sitting up on his own now.
No,
Yeah.
and the scar.
The scar looks
I'd
a
have
little
thought
bit
that.
red,
I'd have
doesn't
thought
it?
4 to 5 weeks after the surgery. The operation had removed the tumour completely, and he had to repeat brain scans for 10 years. So,
He was a very cheerful little boy, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's nice, yeah. He's alive and well 45 years later. Because of the success of William's operation, I think I saw neurosurgery in a rather magnificent, benign light. And I came home, more or less, and said to my first wife, I'm going to train as a neurosurgeon. But from then on, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I've never regretted it. But in retrospect, I can see I paid quite a high price for it, and my family certainly did. The experience of having a son with a brain tumour was probably very good for me as a doctor. I feel it gave me a deeper inner understanding, particularly when I ended up doing paediatric brain surgery myself, which made my occasional failures all the more painful. The problem with this is it's a large tumour. I personally have had two children actually bleed to death during surgery for very large brain tumours. After I qualified as a brain surgeon, I began working at the Atkinson Morley Hospital in Wimbledon, which was one of the most well-known neurosurgical hospitals in the country. Visually, hospitals are incredibly boring places. I shall put various pictures up. Because I was operating on children at that time, I thought a picture of Baba might be nice. I came in one weekend with a drill and put them all up myself. Of course, it's outrageous. Did you sterilise the walls first? But anyway, but everybody calmed down, and the pictures are still here 20 years later.
A 12-year-old boy comes round after an operation on a brain tumour. Consultant surgeon Henry Marsh has helped build up the paediatric neurosurgery department at Atkinson Morley's Hospital over the past 12 years.
Eventually, I became the senior neurosurgeon there and was full of my own self-importance.
We provide a very good service, a very excellent service.
I've always felt a bit of an outsider. I suppose it was partly my innate sort of arrogance and feeling special, which I had no business to feel, but I did. Now, let's see, is finding my shoes. One of the things that always makes surgeons very angry is if somebody walks off with on shoes. Here it is, right there in the room. Because we no longer have, people who tidy up. I suppose the answer is, as surgeons, we ought to be doing our own tidying up. I must say, I think when I have to do a life-threatening operation, I shouldn't really have to be tidying up, cleaning up shoes and cleaning things like that. That is what working in the National Health Service is like, and that's where I get cross. I'm not being a prima donna, but you have to compose yourself when doing this sort of surgery.
Do you think there was ever a time when you saw yourself as a bit of a hero?
Yes, in my early years as a consultant. And then you have your first mega disasters, and then you're humbled. In my day, you worked largely alone, without anyone giving you feedback when things went wrong. After one of my many surgical disasters, I introduced a morning meeting for all the surgeons and the trainees to discuss problems. It's something I still attend to this day, even in retirement. It's a meeting that I started probably 30 years ago. Other people are better at seeing one's mistakes than you are yourself. It's very easy thinking you're as good as our poor patients have no choice other than to believe that we are wonderful. And one must never think one's wonderful. One must always be endlessly self-critical. So I still come in occasionally to teach. I don't get paid for it. I enjoy it. I've always loved teaching. And I still love neurosurgery for all its horrors. Morning, hello. You're doing a short presentation. Right, okay.
This is a 45-year-old woman who presented with a sudden onset headache, fitting well prior to that.
That's the absolute classic appearance of a giant aneurysm. If it gets a little bit bigger over a long period of time, you haven't actually made an ultimate operation any more dangerous. I would have thought nothing needs to be done. And then you just have to make sure you strongly reassure her that she doesn't spend the rest of her life terrified there's a bomb in her head. You have to be ambitious and a bit of an egotist to become a surgeon, but a certain amount of humility is called for. And I didn't have that when I was younger. I saw it all as a huge, glorious exercise in self-promotion, self-glorification. And then occasionally something happens which brings the past abruptly back. I was walking my bicycle home from the hospital yesterday because the chain had broken. And I heard my name called out, and there was a woman on the other side of the pavement. And it turned out she was a mother of a child I operated upon 30 years ago. And I thought the operation was a tremendous success. So I thought I was Superman. A few months later, it was clear the tumor had come back, and the child had oncological treatment and died. And the mother said, "No, we blamed you," she said. "We blamed you for his death." But that was just yesterday, walking along a local street. I could remember the case perfectly, the diagnosis, everything. It all came back in a flash. One of those many gravestones in my inner cemetery.
I was walking home from work, and for some unknown reason, I took a different route, and I just called across the road to him, and the chain of his bike had broken, so he doesn't normally go that way. No, I said, "You treated my son nearly 30 years ago." And I gave my son's name, Max, and he remembered straight away. And that meant a lot. Okay, so this is Max. When he got to 4, people used to ask him what his name was, and he'd say, "Bloody handsome." That's what he used to tell people. You see why, though. These are the harder ones to look at, like this. That was at the Christmas. And then Max was 5 in the January, and he died 6 days after his 5th birthday. First of all, we were told that Max had an aneurysm, and then that was after a CT scan. And then he had to have an MRI scan, and that's when we first met Henry. And Henry told us that it was actually a brain tumour. But he said it wouldn't be a problem. He could deal with it. So we put all our faith in Henry. We were told Henry was the best brain surgeon in the world. He was quite gung-ho about everything, quite arrogant, really. That's where Henry didn't do what we thought he was going to do, which was save Max. That's why I had a hate for him. And the hate has lived with me for, 29 years.
I thought the Max's tumour was benign, and if I removed it successfully, it wouldn't come back. But it was, in fact, a rare and highly aggressive cancer. Tina, hello.
Hello again. I'm gonna... Sorry.
No. Thanks for agreeing to do this. It's quite painful for both of us.
Yeah.
But we'll be all right.
Yeah? Okay. That would have been Max when he first came into you.
Oh, sweetie.
Yeah. And obviously that was after he started his treatment, because obviously on steroids
Yeah. It's not very nice.
But that's so much. Yeah. That's my favourite.
That's super. I remember it all very clearly, but tell me, and I'll then tell you what went wrong from my point of view.
It was a Friday, and you said there's only 2 people in the world that can do this operation.
Gosh, I was very arrogant in those days.
And
I hope I didn't say that, but I'll have to take your word for it.
Yeah.
Amazed.
After the operation, you told us that it was benign, and that even if there was a small piece left behind, it wouldn't grow back. And then Max started becoming poorly very quickly, and we asked for another scan, and You wouldn't allow
I
a scan.
remember all that. I remember all that.
And then I think it was about 12 weeks after
Yeah.
you finally agreed
Yeah.
to do another scan.
Yeah.
And then you told us that actually it had grown back and it was quite aggressive.
Yeah.
And that possibly it shouldn't have been touched in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I do remember is the analysis came back saying was this rhabdoid teratomas, very typical thing, which I'd never come across before. That was my first mistake. I should have inquired what exactly that was. In fact, these are highly malignant tumours.
Yeah.
I remember it as being a very, very difficult operation. I was feeling very pleased myself for having done the operation and trying to understand why I made these mistakes in retrospect. It basically was just a wishful thinking and denial. I didn't want to actually confront the fact it was something very bad, but I just couldn't face it. And they always conclude, ask for help.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. I should have asked for help. I didn't ask for help because I was arrogant, believed in myself too much, and also to some extent the working culture of medicine in those days was sort of, you were a bit feeble, a bit of a wuss if you asked for help.
When you lose a child, I think you have to blame somebody.
Oh yes, that's
And
normal. Yep, yep.
I blamed you for so long, and I had that's. And after seeing you after all those years, 28 years, I just needed to get it out that I didn't hate you actually, and these things would have happened.
Wouldn't have happened if my bicycle chain hadn't broken.
No, it's just strange.
I was walking along the road.
Yeah, but it was when I saw you.
Yeah.
You knew straight away.
Yeah.
As soon as I mentioned Max's name.
I told Tina, I remember, I'm okay most of the time, but even in retirement, scarcely a day passes when I don't remember patients I feel I failed.
But to be fair, that made me feel good that you remembered.
Of course I remembered. And, you know, the trouble is, the work people like me do is you are having to witness so much human tragedy and suffering all the time. It's easy to get a bit inured to it. And the fact I cocked up made it infinitely worse for you.
Yeah.
And for that, I'm deeply, deeply sorry, very sad. But I'm so glad we met.
So am I.
It's been very good for me, actually.
It's made me feel so good, honestly.
Oh, that's super.
It's like a weight lifted, really.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think that's enough emotion for you, Charlie.
Do you know what I think it is?
You can sod off.
Sod off. God, that was emotional.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you.
Years later, she said she now feels it's a weight off her shoulders and she can move on, because in effect she's forgiven me. As a doctor, if you make a mistake, you have no right to ask for forgiveness. But I have sometimes been forgiven, and it's, you know, one of the most moving experiences you can have. The position you have as a doctor over patients is one of enormous power. So it's easy to become corrupted by that. And I had that perception. I fear I didn't always behave well towards patients, and it's a corruption of power. But I'm ashamed of the fact, that's the man I was, you know, and I was a young consultant. I wore blinkers, you know, these are the lessons I've learnt. But it's very painful and very difficult. It wasn't until I became a patient myself with cancer that I really understood what my patients are going through. But, you know, for years I'd walk into the operating theatre, in charge of everything, and then suddenly the world turns upside down, and there you are, an old man in a prostate cancer clinic, having to do your urinary flow studies and everything. It was a degrading, humiliating, deeply unpleasant experience. My work, my getting older, my own cancer have all changed me. I understand much better now how much I need my family. Hello. Kate is my second wife.
So what was it like then when you got your diagnosis, Henry? What was it like for both of you?
It was very upsetting, you know. One's just a human being. It's very frightening and scary. You just have to concentrate on the present and what you can do. And it's the same. I'm 74, I got cancer. Well, I mean, so what? You know, I'm well, get on with it.
You do remember, eventually I had to tell you to stop. He had these sort of phrases that he kept repeating about I've had a wonderful life, I've had a completely full life. You know, I could die without any regrets, or I'm not scared of dying. And I had to ask him to please stop saying that, because although it was no doubt comforting for you to keep saying it wasn't actually lovely for those around you. It was almost an intervention. My sister was in on it too. Like, could he please stop saying that? Could he please stop saying that?
I've stopped doing it, I think, recently, haven't I?
You're doing it a lot less, thank goodness.
Yeah.
I might well die before you, of course.
My surgical career had undoubtedly played its part in the breakdown of my first marriage to Hilary. But by the time I met Kate, I had learnt some hard truths about myself. The marriage had ended with my first wife. It was all pretty traumatic at the time. I was determined not to end my life alone. I wanted to meet another woman. I had no idea how to set about it. And it was just before, I suppose nowadays I'd be on Tinder or Bumble or something. This was before then.
Down to the ground, down to the ground. Down to the ground, down to the ground. Brand new dandy.
We both had failed relationships behind us and were absolutely determined this wasn't going to happen again. And that's all about understanding love is not about putting yourself first.
I promise to you.
I promise to you.
My love, friendship and support.
My love, friendship and support.
Through all our times together.
Through all our times together.
And we've never really looked back since then. It's been a very happy relationship. But the real reason for remaining alive now is for my family and wife and friends, really. I've neglected the garden a lot recently. I hope to get more work done on the garden. I love it when my granddaughters come here. It's nice to hear the bees all buzzing down there. They were flying earlier, given the warm weather, but they've all gone back indoors now. In a few weeks, I have to go through the wretched process of being tested again to see whether my cancer has returned. I can't deny that, you know, when the test is imminent, I start thinking about it all the time, which is a damn nuisance. But I can't help doing that. Even though rationally I'm completely reconciled to the situation I'm in. But emotionally I'm not, you know, I still want to go on being fit and well and everything else. But the important thing is to get on and do things and be useful. There's no point living into old age if you don't put it to some sort of use. In terms of lessons for living, I've always been driven by feeling I've got to be useful, you know, I've got to try to make the world a better place in little ways. I'm not done yet, so the thing is to get on with things. Although I no longer operate, I still travel the world, teaching and lecturing about the lessons I've learnt as a neurosurgeon. I'm packing to go to Ukraine, where I'll be lecturing to quite a large number of medical students. I'm taking the first part of a very expensive neurosurgical drill, which I've managed to get hold of for free. And it's because a colleague of mine was at the front line in a town called Pokrovsk. And the hospital there had a neurosurgeon, but they only had a hand drill. Since then, the hospital has been bombed by the Russians. So I feel a bit apprehensive, but they have to live with it. And I can't say, oh dear, it's too frightening for me. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't go out there, if I couldn't do what little I can do to help Ukraine. I take my running things and a toothbrush, one shirt, one change of socks and pants, and that's it.
One pair of pants and socks? How long are you doing for, Henry?
Oh, not quite 2 weeks. Well, I washed them in the sink, then sleep on it overnight to dry them out. It works quite well. I see myself like a gyroscope. If I'm not constantly spinning, I'm worried about falling over or trying to keep busy to keep the existential angst wolf from the door. We are now driving across the famous Black Earth region of Ukraine.
There have been fresh Russian attacks on Ukraine today, with at least 7 people, including 3 children, killed in the western city of Lviv.
In many ways, I've got more close friends in Ukraine than I have here. Everybody's very unhappy. Everybody's lost friends. There's no future in sight. So people live from day to day. It's grim, very grim. But it really is a fight for freedom and decency. I mean, Putin and Russia is a real threat to Europe, if not to the world order.
Our patients' lives are in our hands. You will be responsible for the lives of your patients one day in the future.
In my future, professionally, is the people I've trained, and whether they've become a little bit more humble, a bit more modest, a bit better at cooperating than I was. But I'd like to think people would say, yes, Henry did influence me a bit in how to be a better doctor. That'd be wonderful. I thought I didn't miss the operating, but in Ukraine, I was asked to step in. I mean, my friends are keen I should help out. Nothing very much. I was just doing a little bit of an operation so my friend could have a tea break sort of thing, It's like coming home after a long time away. But it was nice to remember how wonderful I did find operating.
Smashed by Moscow's latest attack, the historic center of Lviv.
There was one missile attack quite nearby, big explosions.
How do you think you would feel to be blown up in a bomb in Ukraine?
I would regard that as a very good end to my life, rather than dying from prostate cancer slowly or dementia in some old folks' home. I almost sacrificed my family and my first marriage with my complete obsession with neurosurgery. It's my duty to stop the next generation making the mistakes I made. The tragedy for all of us is we learn most from mistakes. We have to be open about failure with ourselves, with our colleagues, and to some extent with our patients as well. In all my medical lectures, it always ends up with the conclusion, ask for help. That is my philosophy of life now, but I've learnt it very painfully through all the mistakes I made over many, many years. We are not gods, even though the trouble is our patients want us to have godlike powers. And we have to resist that pressure. We must not let our patients' deep trust and faith in us corrupt us. And the message is all about getting away from the individual heroic view of surgery. And this is nonsense of neurosurgery being the sort of acme of all human achievement. That's rubbish. People say that because it's so dangerous and it's so frightening. The idea that my brain is going to be operated upon by this guy, you inevitably invest them with superhuman abilities. And of course they don't have them. I'm not a godlike surgeon at all. I'm on my way to meet one final patient from the past. 20 years ago, Jude was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumour.
We were then told that it was a grade 2 to 3, which is cancerous, and that it was inoperable. And because it was inoperable, it was incurable.
Jude, her husband David, and their 2 young children were suddenly facing a nightmare.
Henry.
Remember me?
Oh, yes. Come on in.
When she came to see me, I felt her only hope was an awake craniotomy.
This is the morning that Posey's first slept through the night, 12 hours. Very nice.
So what had happened to me is I had just had my daughter Posey, and then they said to me that I had an anomaly on my brain. In fact, the first doctor we saw, they said basically it's incurable and it's inoperable and it's incurable, and I can't tell you if you've got months or years.
Go away and die.
Yes, which, I mean, it was just the most devastating news you can really get,
yes.
As anyone, let alone as somebody with two very young, very vulnerable children.
But the first surgeon you saw just said no.
Yeah.
Without any explanation.
I think I had most of my normal optimism bashed out of me by the time we were coming to see you. I thought I was on the way out. I was trying to focus most of my attention on my children and living what I did have.
Without wanting to sing my own praises, the way I treated you was controversial, it was unorthodox, but it sort of took a certain, I wouldn't say courage, a certain arrogance and self-belief.
But I think, you know, I've got nothing but gratitude for you.
Well,
So.
I'm lucky to be in a position where I can help people.
Honestly, my children it's been such a joy watching them grow up. So things like when Ned had his graduation last year, that was very emotional for me because I hadn't expected to see it. That was amazing because that was well beyond what I had ever expected to have. Oh.
David, hello.
Hello, Henry.
You and...
How lovely to see you.
You sir.
There's nothing really I can say.
No, it's fine. Well, it's lovely to see Jude. I mean, as I was telling you with a wry smile, statistically, she's done very well.
You have turned our lives around that we didn't have. We were facing an absolutely unimaginably awful situation. And we'd sort of given up hope, really, haven't we?
It just seems amazing to me to have Henry here in my kitchen. So David, I think this was for my 40th birthday he made this. So it's just like, it was just some black and whites of the kids over the years. Yeah.
No, that's very nice.
Yes, I love looking at it. I just love the fact that it represents all those years that I wasn't expecting to happen at all. So, yeah, the fact that I do get to see that, yeah, I've been very lucky.
When an operation went well, it was a quite wonderful feeling. But now I'm a patient, and I must await my own test results. I'm waiting for a phone call from the Royal Marsden to tell me about my latest PSA result. But if it becomes clear the cancer is still alive, I guess we can then know for certain that the tumour has not been cured and is ultimately incurable. It's treatable but not incurable. You know, so be it. I'm not happy about that, but it is what it is. And I mean, this is irrationality of somehow hoping to live forever, to postpone death indefinitely, which is unrealistic. But I'm only human, and obviously I'm a bit anxious about it. Yeah. Hello, it's Henry Marsh.
Mr. Marsh, is it a convenient time to
call? Yeah, sure. Yeah. So what's the news? Yeah.
Well, the good news is that your PSA is only 0.25.
That's gone up a bit, hasn't it, compared to last time? Yeah.
But still negligible.
So you're happy about that? Well, I'm happy. Yeah.
Couldn't be happier.
Jolly good. All right.
Good.
Bye. Bye. Well, it's not quite 2.5, 0.25, which is well within my remission threshold, as the oncologist puts it. So we muddle on for another 6 months.
That's great news.
It's good news. I mean, it's short term, but it's good news. So hopefully we'll think about other things. Now, on a sunny evening, The setting sun, this shines on those trees, and it really is very, very beautiful. I sit here just looking at the sunlight on the trees, which is rather nice.
In these small moments, Henry, does this see you happy?
Never entirely happy. The only moments I have of complete calm is after going for a long run. And then for an hour or two afterwards, I just feel completely relaxed. Yeah, particularly as I get nearer the end of my life and threatened by dying, you know, I can see why people turn to religion, a sense of something beyond oneself. And in a sense, making things. I'm always trying to create something. The trouble is so much it was so badly made. You know, particularly my building work was appalling. I've only made 2 things which are reasonably good, which are the dolls' houses for my granddaughters. They actually, I think, I'm reasonably proud of. And I try to be a better grandfather when I was a father. So, Sam, I'm going to mend the train for you, yes? As a grandparent, they're really more important to me than anything else now. You know, they are the future, and they're young, and they're full of hope and optimism and play, and it really cheers them up. Cheers them up no end. And it's a joy to have them here. I mean, I think my work was particularly hard. There are other branches of medicine which don't leave you with such a large inner cemetery.
But at the same time, I get the sense with you that you are someone who would never want to give up the cemetery.
No, I think that's right. I think as I'd feel, yeah, you're quite right. Not to care about all the suffering you see and some of the suffering you've caused. And to stop caring about that, I can't do that. I have to. It's not that I'm holding on to it. I don't want to. You know, in a sense, it's a burden. But it's important yeah. And I said, particularly now that I'm a patient myself with cancer, you know, I do see things, and I'm now emotionally on the other side.
Do you think you could face your death calmly?
Yes, I think so. I think so much about it. I'll be jolly cross to myself if I don't. I'll have to take myself aside and give myself a good talking to. I'll be very emotional and upset, but I think I could cope with it. By the age of 74, I feel, well, come on, Marsh, you know, you've had a good life, you're not dead yet. Oh, look, there's a rhinoceros up there. What's a rhinoceros?